controls of today's flight is the superb aviator and Squawk Ident podcast co-host. He is a former international and professional racquetball champion, a member of the ING Club, an A&P and avionics tech, an RC aircraft commander, a boat skipper, a commercial drone operator, and currently an Airbus pilot for Legacy Airlines. The name we use here on the show is an alias to our employer, a U.S. mainline carrier. From his podcast studio on the top floor of his Flower Mound, Texas home, where he's putting the whoop back in the can. Help us in welcoming our very own Mr. Rob D. Rob, how you doing?
Hey, Tony. It's good to be back on the show again. Getting in the holiday spirit.
Yeah,
over here in Texas. Yeah.
So you were texting me yesterday that you had a couple issues recently on a flight, and you had to bust up.
Yeah.
Whoops. What's going on there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I obviously, end of the story. We didn't get involved in the from the cockpit crew, other than making the final say whether yay or nay that these passengers should travel with us. But apparently, we were up at the gate, and the agent pointed out two individuals, looked like a couple in their mid-30s, that was giving the agent a hard time about wearing their federally mandated face masks in the airport. The agents had to repeatedly tell them that they have to put their face mask on. So they weren't eating, they weren't drinking anything, and they just kind of walking around without a face mask. And they had the passengers had a couple of snarky remarks to the agent, and the agent said she had to tell them about 5 times, including when they were boarding the aircraft. So that should have been probably the 5th red flag. Anyway, they allowed them to go down the jet bridge, and then of course, as they entered the airplane, the flight attendants had to repeatedly tell them to put on their mask, and they were giving them snarky remarks as they were boarding. And immediately the flight attendant, looked at us got our attention in the cockpit and said, "Hey, we got 2 passengers are borderline non-compliant." And we're like, "Yeah, okay. We heard about them up in the gate area, so keep us advised." So the boarding process went on, and of course, right before we close the door, the flight attendants go through the cabin and do their safety checks and everything. And obviously, it's a mask compliance check at that point too. And again, they had to they encounter them without the mask on. I mean, apparently they totally would just take it off. I mean, it wasn't like they would wear it around their neck or chin. I mean, they were just, it was just dangling from their ear the whole time. So anyway, they asked them again to put it on. More snarky remarks from them. I don't know how many snarky remarks they had in their bag, but apparently the flight attendant said, "We can't do this the whole flight."
Right.
So they came back up to the cockpit and talked with us about it, and they said, "Well, collectively as a cabin crew, we don't want them on the flight because that's something we're going to have to deal with." And so we were like, "Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I agree. Let's take them off." So call the gate agent, and of course our law enforcement, just in case. And we had them removed. And surprisingly, they got up and got off the airplane without any resistance or anything like that. Or I'm sure there was a couple choice words said, but hey, that's the world we're living in right now in the airline environment. You got to wear your mask. And I really, it was really, I mean, I guess I didn't feel too bad, because obviously these people were looking for I don't know if they were out looking for problems, but they weren't, quite cooperating, or, it didn't seem like they wanted to get to Dallas that easy, because we were the last flight that night out of Chicago. So I'm sure they had to spend the night in Chicago on their own dime, because that's something that, the airline's not going to pay for. But anyway, that was the end of an exciting 4-day trip that I flew with a great captain. We had a couple of ECAM actions to complete on one of the flights, which it was kind of comical, because one of the minor mechanical problems we had in flight was just the center fuel transfer pump.
Mm-hmm.
failed. So one of the two pumps was pumping fuel just to one tank instead of both pumps pumping into the left and the right tank. So basically we were feeding out of one tank faster than the other, and but the ECAM drove him into the book, and it literally took him 45 minutes to get through, even though it was really simple. But he went through the ECAM actions, and then obviously checked for follow-ups in the QRH and everything, and he was like, man, I don't know if what they want us to do with this airplane, because if we continue on to Chicago, that's fine, but this plane's going to be dead in the water when we get there.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, well, what's the alternative? Do we just turn back? I mean, basically you're just handling the system as if it was a manual field transfer at that point. You got to turn on the transfer pumps and turn on the cross feed
valve. Yeah.
Turn ooff the fuel pumps on the low side and feed out of the high side, which is, that's standard ops on a Boeing 737.
Right.
Because it's not automatic. But anyway, he did the right thing though. He called MOC and through the dispatcher, and they talked about it. This has been a continuing problem with this airplane, and they did the right thing. They finally got it back on placard, because it was on a placard before. And but the situation developed though that this placard was probably shouldn't have divulged too much information about this, but the placard was, they opened it back up on the original write-up placard. So it was a 10-day Category C maintenance thing. And basically, for those who are listening, Category C is just the amount of days or time that the maintenance has to repair this item on the aircraft before the aircraft is grounded until they fix it.
Yeah.
So it had been 10 days since that original write-up. So that plane, if it did not land at a maintenance base by midnight that night, the plane would turn into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And we were due to land in Dallas at 11:30 if we stayed on schedule. So keep in mind, we did have that passenger disturbance at the gate, and maintenance had to come out and replacard, the ECAM thing, which added time to our, departure. And that was one of the things that he was concerned about. He said, if you guys are going to do this, you all need to be Johnny on the spot, like at the gate when we pull in, because, knowing how long the paperwork stuff can last, this can drive us into a delay that, the intentions are good, but we're not going to be able to meet the timeline. So
were you weren't going to be done in Chicago? You had intention. So it was basically you were landing in Chicago. You had a turn time, and then you were going to be you were going to be pushing off the gate at, you said 11:30 p.m. So
we were going to push off the gate at it was 10:30 p.m.
Okay.
And so,
so now
roughly
with
2
the
hour
delay,
flight to Dallas.
Yeah. So you could have potentially, if it went into that next calendar day, that MEL category of 10 days would have now been exceeded, therefore grounding the airplane until the repair is made.
Yeah, to be clear, we would have had to be on the ground in Dallas by midnight, basically 11:59 p.m. that night. 12 o'clock a.m. the plane would turn into a pumpkin.
Right.
So, and then we would have, illegally, violated an FAR. So anyway, so that was our day. We were like, damn it, we don't need any more delays. Let's go.
Yeah. And of course, this is on the go home leg, right?
Of course. Yeah. It was the very last flight of the trip. So, we're looking at each other, and I'm looking at the captain. The captain was a great guy. He's a 30-year veteran of the company, and Air Force. He's also an Air Force veteran. So I salute you to that, sir. That was awesome. But he was a great guy. He was on a premium trip. So basically he was getting paid time and a half to work the trip. And I was just joking because I was a pilot flying on that leg when the ECAM popped up and he had to go into the books and everything. I'm looking at him laughing, and I'm like, "You're working hard for your money today, sir." All I am is like, I'm just flying the airplane on autopilot, of course, and answering the radios, and it was just, it was just like a, I should have just busted out the popcorn and a soda and just watch him bubble through the books.
Good stuff, man. Good
Yeah.
stuff.